am a true born Belizean.
Tell them that we born there.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born there.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born there.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we born there.
You're born there, you're born there.
Tell them that we born there.
You're born there, you're born there. I am a true born Belizean.
Tell them that we born there.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born there.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born there.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we born there.
You're born there, you're born there.
Tell them that we born there.
You're born there, you're born there. I am a true born Belizean.
Tell them that we born there.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born there.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born there.
I am proud to be a Belizean.
Tell them that we born there.
You're born there, you're born there.
Tell them that we born there.
You're born there, you're born there. I am a true born Belizean.
Tell them that we born there.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born there.
Good night, everyone, and welcome to Naval String Connections. This is ARIA Lightfoot. We will be joined shortly by Bilal Morris, who is running a little bit late. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Harlan, who is our engineer in the back, Creme and XTV, for allowing us to host this for and on behalf of the Belize diaspora. Tonight, we have two Belizean Americans. We have Dr. Yvonne Goff and we have Joseph Bradley Jr. As most Belizeans are aware, California has been seriously impacted by fire. And while this isn't strange for the state of California, it's unusual for the fire to impact within the actual city of Los Angeles in a population density the way it did. Maybe it had before, I haven't been aware. But with that in mind, we have two Belizeans, Dr. Yvonne Goff, who had to be evacuated, and we have Joseph Bradley, who is a contractor, and he has been doing a lot of fire assessment damages for his clients, some of them Belizeans, due to the nature and what was happening in the fire. So I will actually start with Joseph first, because yesterday he gave me a good history of the fires and why it was such a bad fire and why it impacted. Joseph, you were telling me about the hills. Could you just tell us a little bit first before we get into the fire? Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your connection to Belize?
Well, obviously, my name is Joseph Bradley Jr. I'm a Belizean, 49 years old. I live in Los Angeles, but I have strong connections to Belize. I go back quite frequently. I'm a contractor, developer. I've been building in Los Angeles for probably, I want to say, almost 20 years now. And I do some construction work in Belize as well.
Thanks, Joseph. Dr. Yvonne Goff is also a Belizean American. Dr. Goff has been on our show before, and we're very thankful that she's back. Dr. Goff, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your connection to Belize?
Yes, I left Belize as a child. I left Belize in 1972. I graduated. I went to Wesley College. And I am a dentist here in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Dr. Goff. Welcome, Bilal. You look kind of cool in your part of the world. You're on mute. We can't hear you. With that being said, we're just going to jump a little bit into the fire just to stay on point. Joseph, tell us a little bit about fires in California. I noticed, and I want to ask you this specifically because there was a house that the media covered that was not impacted by fire, and it was a newly built house by a contractor who told the media at the time that the material that he used, the stucco, was not was like a fire retardant. And he built it in a certain way because of the dangers of fires in California. So based on what we were talking about yesterday, could you just tell us a little bit about these fires and why is it that it ignited in the way it did?
Well, if anybody lives in, well, I would say in California or Los Angeles area or what we would consider like North Valley, there wouldn't be any strangers to fires or any kind of or this kind of phenomenon, right? It happens yearly, right? I believe it's just a part of nature. We live in a very hilly area. There's lowlands as you get closer to the ocean, and as you go inland in Los Angeles, or you go into the valley, like the San Fernando Valley and the Antelope Valley, you get more up into the hills, and the elevation increases, right? What happens is you don't get a lot of rainfall in California like during the year, and the green, the shrubs, the bush, they become very dry, right? And couple that with this time of year, what they call like a Santa Ana wind, the winds start blowing very, very hard, right? You get like almost hurricane force winds, and this year we got, I think, hurricane force winds, right? Through the hills, through the upper parts of the valleys. And what happened is sometimes the wind, they might knock down an electrical pole and you might have sparks, or somebody might be doing a campfire or whatever it is. Somebody might throw a cigarette out of a car or whatever it is, or you have like a barbecue and you have embers blowing, and one of these things spark the brush, and then the fire would get out of control, and then the wind blows the fire. Now if you live downhill, the fire is going to run fast down the hill. The wind pushes the fire, and you get these embers blowing that are very big, size of tennis balls or whatever it is, and they're blowing all over the place. And those are going to light a lot of other fires, and the fires are going to spread. And it is something that occurs quite often in California. It's something that happens a lot. And what happened this year, you had a lot of urban areas that actually burned. I've seen the fires like probably about 10 years ago, that the fires jump freeways and they would burn out maybe like 2 or 3 houses that would be random, but they're burnt because like ambers blow in the wind, and these ambers might get into like any open spaces in a house, like for example like an eave, and it might burn insulation, burn wood, whatever it is, and start the fire from the inside. There's a lot of people in these fire areas that have like tile roof or concrete cement tile roofs or whatever it is, that act as a kind of retardant. But the fire only needs something that can sustain fire, like wood or insulation or paper or whatever it is, and your house is going to go. What happens is every year they required you, if you live in these areas, if you live in these high fire zone or these high wind zone, they require you to do what's called brush clearance. So that's clearing all the dry brush from around your house, probably about, I want to say maybe about 25 to 50 feet, depending on how far your neighbor is, right? So you'd have to clear this. But then a lot of people, they don't do it because maybe you don't, you where you live, you weren't in a fire this year, maybe not next year, whatever it is, but sooner or later you might be in a fire, and that's what happened this year.
Okay. And normally as a contractor, what is your suggestion, for example, avoiding or mitigating the fires, where if you're building, because a lot of rebuilding will take place because people will build right back. What are
Mhm.
some of is the codes going to change? Is there going to be new regulations that come around? Like what, as a contractor, and say somebody had endless amount of money and they said, what is the best way to avoid becoming a victim of these types of fires? What would you recommend to them?
Well, I mean that I think the best thing to do is to be prepared, right? I think a lot of people in this instance or this year, they weren't necessarily prepared. But I think preparedness and having a plan is always good, right? Then the other thing is that if you're building or you have some money or some funds, you can also build your house or make your house, I won't say 100% fireproof, but you can mitigate a fire, right? So when we build bigger houses now and they're in high wind zone and high fire zone, and most municipalities in California knows which area is a high fire zone and a high wind zone. We One of the codes now is, but you have to be building a new house. You have to put in fire suppression, which is like fire sprinklers. Those are only usually go in commercial buildings, but now you have to put them in residential buildings that are in fire zones and in high wind zone. I would suggest that. I saw some people putting it's a fire sprinkler system that's on the outside that provides like a curtain of water when there's a fire.
So the embers don't hit it?
Correct. There was this gentleman, and I believe he was on TikTok and he was on the news too. He had a house on Malibu. He's a brain surgeon. And his son, and another gentleman, they saved their house and four other houses. And I want to say maybe about 50 other homes in that area burned. But this gentleman explained to the public, and he explained on the news and TikTok, that he was prepared. What he did was he knew this was going to happen eventually. And what he did was he bought a pump. He bought several hoses, several high powered hoses. He actually bought a fire suit, like what the firefighters wear. He bought one of those. He bought boots or whatever it is, and he fought the fires for 2 nights and 1 day. And he saved his house and he saved four of his neighbors' houses. Now, I don't recommend somebody does that, but what I'm saying is that somebody like this was highly prepared. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So a level of preparedness can save you and it can save your property. But somebody like this, now, obviously, they are to the extreme. But he also said that I knew this was going to happen. So he prepared for this like 5 or 6 years down the road. Now, we have to realize where we live, what conditions we live in. And sometimes you will encounter the perfect storm. So then when you have the perfect storm, you have to be prepared for that and have to be able to either be prepared to move quickly or to stay and fight to protect what you have.
So, just to go back to what you said about new building codes, because I did a little bit of rehabs in California, and what a lot of developers slash investors like to do, California back then had a law where one wall survived, you didn't have to treat it as a new construction. And that was their way of avoiding a lot of the new regulations that goes with building. And so a lot of these times they come up with these creative ways to bypass the regulations. Do you know if that's still in place? I mean, this was just a few years ago.
Well, I mean, you still have that in place in the sense that, for example, in California, if you're going to do they have you have what's considered a full tear down, where you'll remove an entire house, gut it, remove the foundation and everything, and you build a new house. That's considered a new structure, right? You have what's considered like a minor repair, and then you have like something that's considered like a 50 to 60% rebuild. Some people, you can get away if you don't change the footprint of the house and you don't change the use of the structure. You could get away with like leaving up a chimney and a main bearing wall. and you can go ahead and build a house. No, that doesn't necessarily take away that you don't have to put in the safety feature of the house. A lot of times what that saves you on is what we call a Title 24 requirement here in California, which is it has nothing to do with fire. It has to do with more efficiency. You know what I'm saying? Because obviously California in the next few years,
Yeah.
we're going more green and more, we're going to 100% efficiency, right? So like you can't use your lights during the day because they won't work. Unless it's night, you have to have solar and so forth and so forth. But we don't have those. You get rid of those things, but not the safety requirements on the house.
Okay. So I'm going to just flip over to Dr. Goff, because Dr. Goff had to evacuate. And in evacuation, Dr. Goff, just tell us, how did you know you had to evacuate? How were you feeling? Were you prepared for this type of evacuation? And what was your biggest fears?
Well, for sure, I did not want to evacuate because, we get these forest fires, these wildfires, so I was not panicked at all. But certainly that morning, I was driving through, I live in an area called Rusty Canyon, um, in Pacific Palisades. And I was driving through there and I saw the wind, and it was like hurricane force winds. And I said, I knew that we were going to have the Santa Ana winds for 2 days or so. And so I said, well, there was a deep down feeling that we were going to have a fire, but I didn't think it was going to be in my area. I thought, forest fire is always out in the valley. It never really affected me. So, but there was a deep down feeling the wind was just vicious, and I could see the dry shrubs, the branches, and the leaves just flying around in circle. And lo and behold, like 2 hours after that, I was at home, and there's a fire station kind of close to me, and I can hear the fire engine going back and forth, and it kept on like, this was like 2 hours later. And so then my husband just turned on the news, and they were saying that there's this fire, but the fire was like 6 miles away from me. I checked it on Google Map and I said, oh, I'm not going to worry about that, you know. And so then they said evacuation. And they said evacuation of all of Palisades. And I said, it's like 6 miles away. That's not going to affect us. They always want us to, so to be prepared. And of course, my husband, he's more prepared than I am. He always tells me in preparation, they're like 5 Ps, where you consider the people, your family around you, photographs, your prescription, your pets, your passport, your important papers. So he already has that all packed away, always ready to go. So and I didn't want to go. I said, no, I don't want to go. You know, it's, it's so far away. But I said, why don't you go out there and see if the neighbors are leaving? And they were leaving, and I said, okay. And then I tried to remain calm because in a situation like that, you don't want to panic. And I said, well, what should I take, And so I managed to get my laptop, my phone, and I grabbed a few pieces of clothing because I kept saying, well, I'm gonna be back tonight. This is a waste of my time, And then as we were leaving, the road was getting busy. It was a slow process. It was a slow process getting out of there. And lo and behold, the fire just blew up. And just, when I've been monitoring it on TV, it's burned out so many neighborhoods. It's just horrifying. For me, it's like the supermarkets, the two supermarkets beside, in the downtown area, um, the library, the my doctor's office, my dentist's office. it turns out that I had an appointment with my doctor the following day, and they called me that evening to say, well, we're moving the office because there's a fire. We're moving the office to nearby Santa Monica. So, but I told them, well, I've evacuated, so I can't come to the appointment. Well, it turns out that the doctor, her office burned down and her home in Pacific Palisades burned down. And the same thing happened with my dentist. She's a friend of mine. Her office burned down and her home in Pacific Palisades burned down. So it's just been a nightmare.
Wow,
It's
that's
been,
and how did those are your personal people that you use and your friends. How about your business? Like, how about your clients? Because you're a dentist. How have your business been impacted by the fire?
it hasn't been impacted because I don't practice in that area, but certainly I'm not at work right now. So
Right.
I had to evacuate. I'm evacuated out in the valley in Thousand Oaks, which is like 40 miles away from where I am. So, and I have not been, my husband has been back there, and we know that our house is not burned. But and the reason for that, I must say, as Joseph was saying, that the fire burned uphill in the dry area. Well, I live in a Rusty Canyon, which is like a valley. So I think the fire came up to like 200 yards, I was told, and it burned to the periphery of the canyon so that the fire didn't go down. And the canyon is kind of moist and green. And so there may have been, I heard that there were some sparks and amber, but there were some people who didn't evacuate. They were able to put it out. They caught on a tree, and I think they were like there's a house like 3 or 4 houses down, and the spark hit the tree, and then they put it out. So that was good.
That must have felt like an Armageddon. I mean, I'm just saying that to so many. I think when I looked it up, it was 42 square miles of houses that burnt down. That's not big for California, but it's significant with population because of how many people can fit in that area. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
that's
yeah, in Southern California, we have a housing shortage as it is, and so there were like hundreds of families that, were displaced. And then we have a lot of homeless people here. So that it is a huge problem, and I cannot imagine how immense it will be, how hard it is to bring back that community. It might in some areas, I know some people are going to go back and build, but it's going to be costly. I think
yeah.
they estimate something like $50 billion.
Because some of the houses that burned were really high-end uh, real estate, right? Very expensive real estate.
Right, right. And a lot of those areas, I think maybe they didn't plan it very well. A lot of those homes were the ones on the hill, they were closely placed together, right? And like Joseph said, they didn't the land was dry and it overlooks the ocean. That's where everybody wants to be, but I think it was in a way it was kind of a poor planning, and no one can ever imagine that something like that can happen. I was
Right.
watching a video and it was just horrible, you
Wow.
know?
And with that said, Joseph, you are doing a lot of fire assessment damages for victims of this fire. One of the things that you mentioned that Dr. Goff also mentioned was the fact that they're building in places that they know are high risk areas, which by the way, a lot of insurance companies cancel people's policies weeks before this fire because New Year's, I guess they reassess the risk every year and they canceled a lot of policies. I read somewhere the one guy house that burned down, they canceled his policy 2 weeks prior. So, as a contractor and a developer, Joseph, you were talking about the importance of respecting nature. So tell us a little bit about the proximity to the homes, and what do you think, like when you're doing this fire assessment, what are some of your ideas and thoughts about how to prevent something similar from happening?
Well, I mean, like that's kind of a loaded question, like a catch 22, or the man I say a catch 26, right? I don't think, in my personal view, because obviously I deal with building and engineering and stuff like that. I do not believe that you could probably ever 100% prevent something like this from happening again, right? So what's going to happen is, in California, like Dr. Goff said, a lot of people want to live on the ocean. A lot of people want to live in the nice areas. They want to be able to see the sea. They want to live high up on the mountains so they get a view, right? So these things cost. They not only cost money, but they cost in terms of destruction when the time comes. We have to understand that we live in a very, very high fire zone. We live in a very high wind zone. So, like, this is January right now, and I could tell you, January 2026, you're gonna have the Santa Ana winds again. You know what I'm saying? You'll have brush again, and you will have another fire again next year. I just don't know where the next fire is going to be. So I think that when people build, they have to build a little bit more smart. Maybe you start using more fire retardant materials. Obviously, I think one of the requirements will be know that all these homes, because they're going to be all ground up construction, will have to have fire suppression inside. A lot of them didn't have it. The newer homes have it, and the bigger homes have it. But the older homes that have been there from the 50s and the 60s, they didn't have it. So no, I think that all homes are going to have to have it. But again, the those are only things that are going to mitigate damage. Fire suppression, it's not necessarily to save lives, right? A lot of people like say, hey, you know what, we want to save lives or whatever. You do, but fire suppression systems are there to save lives, but not necessarily if it's to save a whole structure. It's so that you can get out. Right. And then a lot of people are unrealistic. I think that, somebody said yesterday, I was listening to a fire chief. He said, hey, you know what? We had like 8,000 structures being burned. Usually, when one structure being burnt, you have like 5 or 6 fire truck. If you ever see a fire, if they ever respond to one alarm fire, it's 5 or 6 fire trucks. But imagine 8,000 structures. No city, I believe, is equipped to handle that kind of that kind of firefighting. So these are not, and I said that the one-offs. I think these types of things will become more prevalent, and what we have to do is we have to figure out ways how to kind of mitigate these things, like you said, more space in between people. Because, like a lot of things, when you want to get on these hills in the Pacific Palisades, and you want to get in the hills in the valley, and you want to get in the Brentwood Hills or whatever it is, these people ain't jam up next to each other. You got probably, the rule is that you only need 5 feet from your property line. So if I had 5 feet from my property line, you 5 feet to your property line, that's only 10 feet. And sometimes they actually close their gaps there through zoning or whatever it is. So fires could jump those easily, spread fast, because it's like you're just bulk up together. So I think that people just have to be mindful of where we live, and the conditions within which we live in, and this is the United States. This is California. One of the greatest countries on the face of the earth. The United States is going to rebuild, even if it costs $50 billion. We're going to spend the money, and we're going to rebuild. There's already talk about building already. I think that they're going to fast track a lot of the development and the planning for these houses. I think the governor signed a law that anybody whose house was destroyed by fire, they have to get their once they submit a full package for rebuild, it has to be approved within 30 days, which usually in Los Angeles you'd get something approved like in a year. So they are fast tracked that because people, there is a housing shortage and people need a place to live in. It's just that we have to find better materials to build with. And we have to also, I believe, kind of like learn how to manage your resources, manage the brush, manage the trees, the forest, whatever it is, and kind of utilize the resources that we have, because we have to live hand in hand with the earth,
Yeah, Joseph, there was a complaint, you hear it all across the news that there was not enough water. You're talking about and Dr. Goff, you pitch in if you can. This is a very sophisticated urban planning country. And I could not understand Karen Bass, the mayor is taking a lot of heat for that a lot of the fire hydrants run out. Edison, the electrical company, is getting significant blame also for the fires in some of the other areas. What is it that you could say, Joseph, that they have went wrong in terms of the system of fire eradication? They said also there was not enough firemen. But this particular issue about the shortage of water, I mean, it's hard to understand. I mean,
yeah.
There is a Belizean friend of mine in Altadena, Mark Sampson, whose house was just burnt down. And, these people are like, Dr. Goff, for you, your house was fortunately saved. But for other people, when you hear an excuse like that, there was no water and the system failed. Both Edison and DWP, Department of Water and Power. What would you say may have happened there, Joseph, in terms of?
I mean, what happened? And listen, I know they try making an excuse for any politician, right? But what I would say is this, right? You have to I believe it. You have to look on it on two folds, right? You have to look and say, I don't know the damage assessment. I don't know how many fires there were, right? So some people say, hey, that over 10,000 structures get destroyed, right? So if you had 10,000 fires, I'm just using that as a number. So maybe we had 5,000 fires in one space, I say 48 to 72 hours, right? No firefighting apparatus will be designed to fight 8,000, 10,000 fire at the same size. It would humanly be possible. I design a structure right now, right? And I design a structure, like if I design a building, in California, I design a building for earthquake 7, right? Now if an earthquake 10 come, might knock down the house, but I not design for that, you know what I'm saying? Or I might design my building for 100-year flood. But these are
The excuse they say, well, those fire hydrants was just set up for small fires in there, but it has not been set up for large scale fire.
Of course,
like
because
that don't make no sense.
No, listen.
Yes,
Yes,
about 42 miles.
but
42 miles of fire. I mean,
yes, correct. And then what I explained to you is this, right? What I'm telling you is that you have to understand. I mean, it now makes sense, but from an engineering perspective, when I build a structure, like suppose I build 10 homes, right? The fire department now tell me, hey, listen to me, I have to have one fire hydrant in the last structure to make sure like if the fire come in for fight it, right? Now then the fire department now they tell me that I need to go one fire hydrant in because all 10 homes are there on fire at the same time. We the design that maybe one or the two on a place I'm get in and the fire truck will come in and open up the fire hydrant or whatever. If all of the 10 houses should get they on fire at the same time, we are in trouble because we never designed it for that. You know what I'm saying? We designed that, like for example, you get on one plane and you might have one or two defibrillator in there, but if everybody catch one heart attack, some people now got no defibrillator on a plane. You know, they have they prepare you for the oxygen, but you don't have one unlimited supply of oxygen. On an aircraft, I believe you only have like 5 minutes of oxygen until you could get below 10,000 feet. It's only a small little canister, so you only prepare for like the interim. We it's and I don't make an excuse for them, but what I'm saying is that when you have a fire like that, and one lot of the pipes they melt, one lot of the structure they burn down, so water doesn't may escape. When you go to the fire hydrant, the hydrants are empty because the water they go somewhere else. And usually in that case they have to use like something like a river water, one pond, one sea or something like that, where you have one abundance of water. You know what I'm saying? And try to use that. But these people, and I understand what they say, but like in the planning, and maybe they have to change their planning, their marker, and try to start a plan for something bigger because bigger things are happening, bigger hurricanes, bigger fires or whatever it is. So maybe they have to plan for one bigger fire, whatever it is. But back in when they sit down, they weren't thinking about that. And one of the things is too, and I'm just saying, is that when we use fire hydrants right now, we use one system that was designed probably like 2-3 decades ago, and a lot of them DWP
Antiquated,
pipes or whatever.
outdated.
Correct. Then DWP pipes they were there for like 30-40 years. You know what I'm saying? And then one lot of and this is what we've been saying. Like if you look over and I do a lot of these studies here and I read a lot of things. If you look over the United States, I'm not even talking about California, they want to tell you how many of our bridges are outdated. You know what I'm saying? How many of our roads are outdated, but nobody is thinking or whatever. So if you think about that,
Structure.
how much of we waterways and we water pipes underneath the ground they outdated or whatever it is, you know? So I do believe that these people have to start to think about these things and start to think about the future, because I do believe that in the future, these types of fires and these types of natural disasters that you are seeing will become more prevalent. So you have to start to plan for them.
So Dr. Goff, what you look at it
So
from the political sense in terms of looking at the leaders in terms of your area Palisades, the mayor, and how response are. They're saying that she never did allocated enough firefighters. She was traveling and big time travels, and here are people house to burn. You as a victim, not necessarily that your home was lost, but you are suffering in terms of displacement. How do you look at the terms of how your city Palisades has been run? Were these things ever mentioned to you all as a residents in terms of how safe you all are?
well, first of all, I don't blame the mayor. You know, like Joseph said, it was a perfect storm. And I think the main issue was the wind. And it doesn't matter what kind of prevention you do when that wind comes, and if there's a spark, there's a fire, there's not a lot you can do if you are prepared. You have to be prepared. So one of the problems that made that fire spread so quickly was the wind, right? And because of that, the firefighters were not able to use the super scooper, the where they dip the water from because the ocean is right there, right? And people are saying, well, how can that happen? You know, you have
All
the
of
water
water.
right there. But the wind and the firefighters were not able to do that. You know, I guess they were putting their lives at risk, you know, using an aircraft to pick the water up and, you know, throw it on the fire. You know, they were not able to do that. So, as I said, and then they had a reservoir, and the reservoir was empty because we haven't had rain in over a year. So, you know, as Joseph said, it was a perfect storm where there were all kinds of things, and there was dry bush, you know, there was a lack of water, it was the wind. So you can't blame anyone, you know, really. It's just a perfect storm, and you can be prepared all you want.
Yeah.
Stuff like that happens. And so that's why I think it's unfair to blame the mayor for something like that. You know, it just happened. And so now we have to deal with it. But of course, we can be more prepared by having the reservoir and have the fire department prepared. They were not prepared. They were caught off guard. So that's what happened.
Joseph, some of the mitigation the assessment that you're doing for people, what are you seeing? Because you are, and I don't mean to say it this way, but what happens in disasters, there are people who suffer loss, and then there's other people where their business suddenly become extremely in demand. And for you to make an insurance claim, you have to have an assessment of the damages, right? So tell us a little bit about what the assessment involves when you're dealing with the insurance companies and what people need to get done if you are familiar with it.
Well, I think that the right now, obviously, like if your house was damaged in the fire or whatever it is, or anytime by damage, smoke, wind, whatever, fire damage, burn down. I think that you should obviously contact your insurance company. I think you file a claim, then your insurance company sends out like an adjuster to take a look at your house. You have to document all the things that were there. You try to look at previous pictures or whatever it is, videos, to show what's in your house, how your house was situated, the style of your house, the quality of your house, or whatever it is. Everything that you could probably possibly put together. I don't know, some people have some valuable stuff in there, painting, jewelry, whatever it is. You put these things together, and then they send out an adjuster, and then people have like what's called on their insurance thing called, because some people's house might be worth $4 million or $3 million, but that's not the replacement value for your house. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't cost that to build your house. That's your house with equity and stuff like that in there. So then you also contact like a contractor or somebody that builds that style of house or whatever it is, and they would give you like based on today's market, what it would cost to build your structure back, and then your insurance company along with the adjuster and then the person that the contractor, whoever you hire, they go back and forth and they try to come up with a number that they will pay you out to to build that structure back. No, they won't give you the money because remember, a lot of these people, they have mortgages on their house, so the collateral has been destroyed. So the mortgage company is invested. So a lot of times what they do is the insurance company pays the money to the mortgage company. They write you like a double check, and then the owner has to sign over the check, because I have that right now too. The owner has to sign over the check to the mortgage company, and you send it off to the mortgage company. They deposit, and then the mortgage company turns around and then start paying the contractor as you start building back the structure. And then sometimes we use a fund controller, whatever it is, to control the money and so forth, to make sure that that homeowner gets his or her house built back, and then that the mortgage company gets their collateral back, and then at the end of the day, everybody's just returned back to normal or made whole.
Um, Now you said something which I think is potentially a problem, just working within the investment space. They're going to approve plans in 30 days, right? That's an investor's dream.
Well,
Because
it's
I
only the
can't
people
see
that their house was destroyed.
but that's 8,000 or more
Well, not
houses.
not not all 8,000. So you have to get your package ready. And then once you have a full package, and then this is what the city says: once you have a full package and you have ready to submit and you submit it, the city has to get the approvals for you within 30 days. That's the ideal.
Don't you
Dr.
think
Goff, what is your recovery
just
procedure
a little bit more on this,
within
Bilal,
that?
one quick thing.
Yeah.
Don't you
What is
think the city is being a little bit ambitious? How are they going to evaluate all those fire victims and approve a package? You could barely get the city to do anything in a few days. I mean, it sounds like an ambitious,
it will be
unrealistic
very
plan.
bureaucratic. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the city have to sound good too. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, they can't say, "Listen to me, I get it done in 1 year." You know
I
what I'm
mean,
saying? They have to
one
say, "I
year
get
is
it done in
probably
a."
more realistic than I mean, you and I know that. And
Yeah,
all
but
houses have to be inspected during the period of building. So how the
Yeah,
heck
but
they
you
gonna
you
get
you
there?
have a lot of people get displaced, so those people needs to. And then think about it. You have people that got displaced, so those people have to go back. Those people have to go somewhere. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of those people are want to go back. And then I don't want to, you know. I mean, you have to understand, this is not Compton that burnt down. This is Pacific Palisades that burnt down.
Right,
You
right.
have the rich of the rich, Malibu, Pacific Palisades, Santa Monica area, whatever it is. This is the rich of the rich. A lot of these people were movie stars. They're movers and shakers in Los Angeles. You know what I'm saying? They want what they want and they want it. No, that's why they live where they live.
So Joseph, and this will be my last thing with this thing
Mm-hmm.
because our company had a property in Malibu that burnt down a few years ago
Mm-hmm.
with one of the borrowers who were in under foreclosure at the time.
Mm-hmm.
California is a very litigious state, very litigious. It took us probably almost 8 years to
Mm-hmm.
settle with the guy because, of course, the house burnt down. And even though you say there's a replacement value, when you're talking about foreclosures and mortgages, here comes the equity argument, and they don't want to accept the replacement value because they're
Yeah.
with a mortgage. They want their equity aspect to be considered into
Mm-hmm.
the thing, and then it turns into a legal battle. And because you're dealing with rich people who understand the system and can hire attorneys, I'm just saying, my next anticipation is you'll have a lot of developers that are walking around with checks and they're going to be making offers to people because a 30-day turnaround time to me is like a gold mine for a developer waiting to make some money. But that's just my opinion. I mean, that's how I see it. That I can't see no 30-day turnaround. I think they're being ridiculously ambitious and they're going to run themselves into more problems by promising something that they can't deliver. That's just what I think on that issue. But go ahead, Bilal.
Yeah, I just tune in with in the same line of thought. I wanted to hear that from Dr. Goff herself. What has been her experience so far, being displaced, and your plans in terms of working with the city and with whatever programs, as Joseph was saying, there are certain protocols and procedures towards this whole recovery for those who have been affected. Your home wasn't burnt down, but you were displaced. And I understand that residents cannot go back to those areas until there is an environmental study of those areas where there could be asbestos and a lot of toxic material. So people want to go back. They're you know, eager to get back to see the state of their homes. You mentioned that your husband was back there sometime, but aren't there environmental, there is a block from residents going back into the areas? And then,
Yeah,
what has been what's your plans? I mean, working with the state, what is in store for you in terms of all the benefits and the programs that are there for you to recover? Yeah.
well, we've been pretty lucky. We've had my husband call the insurance company because, first of all, I need to tell you that there are a lot of unscrupulous people out there. And then we discovered yesterday that someone filed a claim with FEMA with our address. Some
Oh,
female,
wow.
yeah, so there are lots of unscrupulous people. And so when we went online, they're saying, well, this application is a duplicate. So, and then we found out the person's name. Of course, we don't know who that person is, but there are lots of unscrupulous people. There are
Imagine.
people trying to collect, GoFundMe on behalf of victims. But in regards to the insurance company, we seem to have a pretty good insurance company. We contacted them and they've been, on it. And now today they will put us up at a hotel in Santa Monica, which is close to where we are. So they've been pretty good. There's $1,000 deductible, and they say not to worry about it.
Wow.
The insurance company is Mercury, and I've heard a lot of people
That's
complaining
very
they
good.
haven't even heard from their insurance company. But their funds, if you're displaced from your home, they give you like up to 30 days of coverage, and they'll put you up. And so they actually made all the arrangements. And so we're going to go to a really nice hotel in Santa Monica in a day or so. But the people who have actually completely lost their homes, it's you can never regain what you had, you know. And we had a discussion with a contractor where we asked if we had to, because the fire was coming and we thought we were going to lose our home. So we talked to a contractor and he says, well, the insurance company will pay you maybe something like 60, 70% of the value of your home to build it. So, then you would have to come up with that 40% out of your pocket to replace your house. Because maybe when they did the estimate, it was at a certain rate, but now, it's going to cost you more to build a house. So it's not that easy. Some people are probably just going to sell their lot,
Yeah.
but you can
But I
never
think
recover from that,
And how about your
you know?
practice, your dental practice? How are you going to equate that into the displacement? I mean, can you go back to your dental
No, my
practice?
my practice didn't burn. My practice is in LA.
Oh, you're not
It's
in the
yeah, no,
Palisades.
no.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I'm talking
Right.
about my home. I live in the
You're
Palisades,
right, right,
but
right.
no,
I
my
thought
practice is
also your
not there.
practice was also there.
No, I
Yeah.
said a friend of mine who is a dentist, she lost her
You
practice
lost
and
it.
her home.
No.
But
what's she
no,
doing, by the way? How is she handling it? How is she doing?
she's not she's had some offers for other dentists, offering for her to come and, move in or practice with her. But she's taking some time off. So I'm not, but with that, employees lose their jobs, all those businesses, they all, who's going to compensate them, you
Compensation.
know?
That's what I wanted to find. Yeah, in terms of the compensation, would there be um any form of, you talk about FEMA, but would there be any other form of compensation in terms of you had a lot of loss in terms of your practice? Though it's in LA,
Right. Well, what, what,
you couldn't work, you know?
right, right. What they tell you is, to file the claim with the insurance. What FEMA tells you is to file the claim with the insurance company first. Because first of all, if you have insurance, FEMA is not going to they give you a basic amount of money of $770 to get a hotel or food or whatever. And
Wow.
then there's another, yeah, and then you're gonna have to prove to FEMA that you need more money. They give you, I think there's an amount of $43,000 that they give you to recover your home, but you're better off having insurance.
Right.
And for some people, the deductible is $1,000 or $2,000. So you have to pay that first to access some of the funding. And as I said, FEMA is telling you if you have insurance, you need to go to the insurance company first.
So this is exactly what I'm saying, that $43,000 can't build a house in California. One, um, some insurance companies canceled their policies before this event happened. So it's going to be, sadly, it's going to be a situation where people are going to lose twice. They're going to lose their house that burnt down, and they're going to be incapable of rebuilding their homes because the cost, I mean, you can't build a house for 43,000.
Absolutely.
So Joseph, for example, somebody comes to you and they need to rebuild a house. I imagine you're going to be ridiculously busy very soon, because there will be some people who can rebuild, right? Those some of the people that you're doing assessment for, do they have the intention of rebuilding their homes or do they want to move?
Well, I mean, some people have the intention, obviously you have the shock, right? So some people don't want to, they're trying to get information,
Okay.
right? And a lot of people, a lot of people don't even understand how insurance works. You know what I'm saying? Until you need it. You know what I'm saying? It's something that you pay for, every year, whatever it is, you pay with your mortgage or whatever it is, but you don't understand how it works until you actually need the insurance, right? So, people are trying to basically figure out things, figure out get information, and then they're gonna figure out what they're gonna do. I think that there is going to be a certain amount of people that are going to leave. So you have people that obviously have money and then they would be able to build really quickly, right? And then they would be able to build what they want. And then you'd have some people that probably just, they probably don't have the money to build. They rely on their insurance company. But you also have to make sure that your insurance company is going to pay you enough to build, right? So the other thing is that you're going to be building in the Pacific Palisades, right? And I was explaining to somebody yesterday, right? So when we build a structure, there's a lot of different things that goes with that structure, right? So you have to put in electricity, you have to put in water, you have to put in sewer, right? A lot of these things in that area was destroyed, right? So it's not just building a house, and usually we don't do that. We build what we call the perimeter of the house or the line of construction, and then everything outside that line, the other utility companies will come and they will bring those up to the house and then we connect them in or whatever it is. And here, like for example, I have what's called a B general license, so I can build any commercial structure that somebody lives in or you can utilize for work or whatever it is, right? But then if you're going to go onto the streets and come in, that's an engineering license, right? So we would have to get like what we call like pipe fitter guys to come in and do that, and those are very expensive. Usually when we're doing construction, that's already done, but a lot of the things here they're destroyed, and then we also have to wait until like DWP, the power company or whatever it is, they do their assessment, because a lot of these light poles or whatever and the stuff that was on the ground, it's destroyed too. So you might have to pull in a whole few miles of wires or whatever it is, and so forth and so forth. You don't have water over there. You have to replace all these hydrants or whatever it is that weren't working for whatever reason. So it's a lot of things. It's not going to be like, oh, tomorrow going to start billing for you. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
they clean up, like what Bilal has mentioned. There's I think they're starting to do some environmental assessment or whatever it is, but they clean up, and it's not going to be like you own your house and then you get somebody to come clean up your stuff. What I believe they're going to do is they're
Hazard
going
waste.
correct, but they're going to take a little bit of time, and then like they're going to allow people to go back in there, because people want to sift through their stuff and see what's in there. Maybe it's some affection or effects or whatever it is that they have in there and so forth. So then you let those people do that, and then what they're going to do is they're going to then come in and with bulldozer and then just take out everything. You know what I'm saying? And then just block by block, just load up everything and chuck that out of there, because it's hazardous waste. And when you're taking it out, people think, oh, it's just a house that burned. You're gonna take out the concrete, the foundation, all the pipes underneath the ground and everything, because the foundation, the
Gas,
concrete
if there's
was,
any gas links and stuff.
yeah, all that's gonna come out. You're gonna rip all that out. You know what I'm saying? And then a lot of these structures, because when you dig out that structure out there, you have a big hole. So you have to grade, you have to put in dirt, you have to put in replacement dirt, compact it in, get geologists to make sure that the ground is good for you to build back in, and then you're gonna start putting your foundation and stuff again. So it's gonna be a little bit of a task. It's not gonna be overnight, and like I said, once people understand the process, then they're going to decide whether or not they're going to live there or not.
And Joseph, this is where I go back with the 30-day thing again. Because I feel like in construction, you need to have people have realistic expectations. And to me, it is better to underpromise and overdeliver than overpromise and underdeliver. Now, if you tell the public that doesn't understand that entire process that you just described, because before they can even start building, the utility company has to go in there, environmental people have to go in there, all these different things have to happen, and they all have to do it. For example, you want water to run, they'll have to put in all those different pipes underground. Then they'll have to put back wires, internet, everything, right?
Mhm.
With that in mind, by the time you're ready for build, the city not even are ready for have anybody for accept our package to even start building for about a year or two. And so if you tell people if your package is ready, you can start the building at 30 days, maybe that not for the millionaire that runs their own septic tank and have their own solar stuff and they could do for their own thing. But the middle class and a little above middle class people, they have to wait until the city come in and put in the infrastructure. And I feel like with cities, and I think this is why politicians sometimes get blamed innocently because they're trying to appease the public and make things seem like it can work this quickly rather than just tell the public, hey, there are difficulties in this. I mean, 8,000 are the same way we had to explain 8,000 people are being impacted at the same time. This is not one fire, this are 8,000 fires. So if you don't set people expectations, then people go off on a tangent because they're emotional. They just lost heirlooms, family, their house, they grew up in, they have so many memories, and you're not dealing with people on a logical level when tragedy affect them. So I just think that it's a very lengthy
Yeah.
process.
And
Um,
Joseph, where did California Edison get blamed for starting, I think, the Silmar fire? I mean, you have power lines where fires, which is a sort of they extend the fire, but how can an electrical company create a problem to get a fire started? I mean, in sort of Silmar and those places. That California Edison was blamed for, the utility company that provide power there. These lines are under fire, you know. I mean, explain if you may, how can they get blamed for something like that?
Joseph,
Well, I don't know how they could blame for it. I mean, I think these are just things that
Can that
occur.
happen? Is that a possibility that those electrical lines could further, which has
Oh,
happened
oh,
in fires?
oh,
Fires
yeah.
have been a common thing in LA.
No,
I
no,
mean,
no,
this
no, no.
one
But
was
no, no,
unprecedented,
no.
but
Yes, but up in Silmar, up in Santa Clarita, up in Antelope Valley or whatever it is, when you run across the top of the hills, you have Southern California Edison, which has you have a lot of its infrastructure up there. So you have a lot of high powered lines up there, right, running across the hills for feed different urban areas. What happens is, like I was explaining before, these Santa Ana winds that are running through these passes, and like what run last week or the week before, whatever it is, these were almost
that's winds, yeah.
hurricane winds, right? What happens is the Edison company of the Edison company and DWP for the last few years they started to, well, not last few years, but probably about the last decade or so, they start monitoring these winds, right? And when these winds get too high, especially up in the Antelope Valley, Santa Clarita Valley, one part of the San Fernando Valley where these lines are, they shut down the power. You have to turn off the power because I have a house up in Santa Clarita and they tell you, hey, listen to me, high wind, you're going to have a power interruption because if one of the lines they fall, and the wind blow down one of the line there, or it pop one of the line there, or one of the lampposts they drop, the line want start a spark because you have it on a live wire. So if you ever see one live electric high volt wire on the ground,
Mhm.
and they jump up and down like a snake, and you see sparks they come out at the end. Now if there sparks there, jump in at the bush or whatever it is, and that they up in at the mountains, and you have the high wind, that one light one fire. So when they have that occurrence there, they usually say because we have so much high wind, we're gonna start to shut down off the power and turn down some of our low thing or high her high tension wires. But I think that they can't shut down all it, because people want electricity
People
too.
call.
You know what I'm saying? So people want to call in and say, hey, why my power shut down? But then I know that like one kind of want safety thing. So what they do, they try turn it down, they try bring it back online. And what happens up, I believe, in the Eaton fire, like Silmar area, one of the high tension wire or one of the light pole they drop. And when that drop, it busts the wire and the wire start to spark and you catch fire. And you had, I believe this, if you look it up, and I remember, but I think in the last probably decade or whatever it is, you had 3 Eaton fires already.
Right.
Because there is a lot of infrastructure in that area.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you ever drive up north and you go up the hills, when you look on the top of the mountains, that's where we have all our cable companies. That's where we have all our cell phone antennas, because that's our probably the biggest reach there. These things are being powered by electricity, or when these things blow down or whatever it is because of high wind, fires going to start. But I
Of
mean,
course, you're going to see a lot of lawsuits start coming after California this and that.
Especially California, very litigious.
Is that right, Joseph?
yeah,
Lawsuits like crazy, right?
yeah. People want to blame the power company, but like I said, I think that it's just where you live. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just where you win. And make I tell you something, right? I may explain this to somebody the other day, right? I mean, I think it was earlier this year in Belize. You say the Pine Ridge fire there, right? You had a lot of fires, I Belize too, right?
Yes.
You had the fires and it run, I Belize, like crazy, right? But it's a natural occurrence. When it get hot again next year, you'll have the slash and burn, the people and everything, and you'll have that. So what happens is we have to know what part to build with house
And I
and what
think those
corner to
Belize
build.
fires, from what I did coverage in the south, farmer in the Punta Gorda area, where they were blaming them, telling them that it was slash or burn, that them it caused the fire. The guy said, no, the people that burn the garbage.
Yeah, correct. People burn garbage.
He
People go do
said
the. I
that,
mean,
no,
right,
they're
right,
not
right
them,
there.
the farmers that caused that the
Yeah,
people that burn the garbage. Because
right there
Belize
in
don't seem to have one good garbage disposal system in
yeah,
every district itself.
yeah.
Like,
People go burn their trash, and one
yeah.
of the things is too. I was telling somebody because somebody remember maybe like a week ago in the fires and said, man, it have to be a conspiracy because when you look upon the thing, some of the trees they stay up, right? The big trees they stay, they not burn. But I tell them, I said, man, it's been burning for hundreds of years, and these trees they survive because the trees then are part of nature. The
Yeah.
trees have learned how to survive through all these fires because these fires are one common occurrence. It's just
Indeed.
that we as humans don't know
Proper conservation efforts.
correct. But the trees they survive. The trees will always be there. The trees they not fall down. The trees they outer bark they burn and then they shed that and they come back again next year. But it's something that always happens. So we as human beings, we have to learn how to conserve and live one with nature because these are things that always happen. It's like, earlier, I believe in 2024, because in California, people don't understand that one cycle, right? So right now, you had the dry brush, you had the fires. One few months from now, you will have the rains come and you have mudslide.
That's what I wanted to get to.
You have the mudslide and all the people
Because it's a
all the people where
cycle.
they on the mountain. Correct, that cycle it happen every year. The people where they on the hill, they will start to say, "Oh, my house is dropping a thing," but you go build your house on stilts on the side of a hill where it get washed down. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean,
So the rains are about to come, Joseph, and
the rains are going to come, and they know
Goff, what has been implemented to, because it's a cycle. This has been going on all the time. The fire, then the floods, then the slides, and then they go through over again, and they build back and
when I do it again, correct.
so
And
if
the
you keep
mudslides
on doing the
come,
same thing all the time, you're going to keep getting the same thing.
same results. That's the same thing.
So, guys, I do have a question, a bigger political question for everybody. Do you think governments are the right organization to organize people around these issues? Because what we're seeing now is the Republicans are coming in, right? A lot of them are anti-regulations when it comes to environment and stuff like that. They're big
Like
business.
Trump, frack.
Well, yeah, they're big businesses, And they believe that businesses should be regulated. And I only say this because California has a housing shortage. One business will come in and say, well, the shortages is created by all these regulations. The regulations are forgotten. You put people in environments that are dangerous, right? Well, a lot of people are not interested enough in politics to even get up and vote anymore. So you have a minority of voters that are showing up to vote, but people are not showing up in the numbers that need to speak to we are living collectively and we need our government to structure us around good practices, right? So what do you think things will turn into? Because we cannot deny climate change anymore. We really can't. The fires are getting and I'll tell you why, Joseph, because I know you are pro anti-regulation. So the reason I'm saying this is simply this, right? You're right, it is cyclical. But back in the day, we never made it live on top of each other. We weren't living in close proximity to each other. So when they have a fire that one house burned, maybe an area burned, but a lot of lives are not affected. But in trying to maximize profits, especially when it comes to a lot of developers in the US specifically, they try build, let's say, 10 feet apart from each other, or they build one apartment complex and they stuff 500 people in at the same area, so that when these natural disasters happen now, the impact is greater because you have all their people that are in close proximity to each other. Anybody have any ideas how we could seriously, as a human race that is now at 8 billion plus people in the world, how we could seriously mitigate climate change? And the question is, and I'll ask this question, is it climate change or is nature taking back
But
itself?
Aria, I think climate change are like inflation, right? If you ask a typical American explain inflation, they can explain, but they feel it. They go to the supermarket.
Well, is it
The
that
prices are high. When you talk about climate change, though, I don't care which American it is, or any public, or anybody in the world, they don't really understand what that means until they feel it.
right? But
I
we
mean,
cut down the mangroves, are you the cut, are you the living at their areas? Is it climate
and
change
some
or
people
is
don't
it
believe it.
just
Like what that?
nature
You don't
reacting
know what
to
to talk
us?
about until, but you're telling you to feel it though, right? This and such, all these things we have to go through in terms of the fires, the floods, and everything like that. And they say, oh, okay, yeah, I could understand how you've quit, but the natural, the typical public in any part of the world, when you talk about climate change, and I believe that climate change thing is so hard to sell to the publics of to electorate. You know, it's very hard for you to sell to them. It's like in Belize, if you tell them, where is our studio? Or, you know, they don't understand that. Like,
But I understand that people won't understand it, but government-wise, because this will be a multi-billion dollar impact, that come out of my taxes because the
right.
federal government has to step in. And the insurance, and I guess my thing is, the insurance company are allowed to walk away because they decide they want high risk. So what am I point to have insurance if I have to pay these insurance and cancel when they feel like the risk is too high, and then they still take my taxes and they try to solve this problem? I mean, do we really need it? Should we get rid of insurance? And should the government just deal with high level disasters? You know
What's
what I
your
mean?
thoughts on that, Dr. Goff?
Well, it's complicated, but I think it's driven by the economics of things. There are people who want to make money, right? So they're going to be drilling, they'll be cutting down the rainforest and not being concerned that there has to be a balance of nature. You know, so when you cut the forest down, then you deplete the animals, and then the global population is increasing. We're putting more stress on Mother Nature. So, but it's all economics. So again, we as citizens, we're going to have to put the right people in that will, will set the
But
regulations.
we
Of course, you
missed
have to
that
have
opportunity.
regulations. You have to regulate things, because things will be out of control.
In terms of
So
this
we
crisis,
have to
though,
put the
Dr.
right
Goff, with the
people
coming
in.
in of a Trump administration, do you all
It's
think
going to
that
be complicated.
it will be worse?
Well, some
Oh, they're
people
going to
would
be drill.
argue,
They're going to be drilling. They're going to be
but
drill, baby, drill,
some people would
And
argue,
there will be more
lift
forest fires.
regulations.
some people would be
Yeah,
arguing
more
that we
forest
just,
fires, more global warming. Yeah, of course. Well, again, the way I see it is you get the leaders you vote in. The people make the
Get
decision.
the leaders you
So
deserve.
here in America, that's what happened. So now they'll find out. They'll find out that they made the wrong decision, and then maybe we'll reverse back and we'll be more conscious of mother nature.
Get a
But
wake-up
you
call.
you have to feel the burning of your
That's what I
neighborhood.
said. They don't understand what climate change is, but they will feel it.
They
My
will
mother
feel
used to
it.
say, if you can't hear, you don't feel, right?
Feel it, yeah.
my
And
question
and
is,
and and that's human nature. People, you can preach all you want about certain things, and if they don't hear you, they don't believe you, they're not going to accept it. But they'll find out. They'll find out soon enough that we live in nature. We
but
have to live in a
my
balance.
question is, some people would say it's not climate change, it's just Mother Earth doing a correction. In other words, we're overpopulated, so Mother Earth want to kill off. This is what one of my Republican friends told me. The pandemic was there so that the earth could rid itself of the elderly and the weak. And there are people who believe that. There are people who believe that this is just nature.
Well, I sat in one biology class one time. The professor said to him, what do you do with exponential population? And we are taking notes. And the first thing you say, increase the death rate. I'm like,
But that's, I
you
mean,
know?
that, so that's not like for
how
you
could you
to,
be
to
teaching a
chime
class
in.
and telling students that kind of stuff? Exponential population growth. How do you solve
But
that?
that's how
The
Mother
first
Earth
one,
solves it,
increase the
though.
death rate. Well,
But that's how,
Professor, what's the next thing? Wars.
but
That's the
that's how
philosophy,
Mother
though. That's the
Nature.
philosophy.
That's Mother Nature, though. If you there in our area and there's an overpopulation, one portion will starve and the other rest will fight for food. That nature all over. And so my question
But do we
is,
actually carry out these things? Isn't that right, Dr. Goff? Do we actually carry out these things scientifically? Well, we come from the book, from the classrooms to the implementation on the ground, and Joseph P. engineer
Joseph, I'd like for you to
draconian
answer.
policies that people in
As I
high.
said, it's driven by economics. That's what's happening now. A long time ago, people used to depend on the earth. Now it's all about making money. And if it means destroying the earth, so be it, because it's all about making money. And so, we're going to have to get leaders that understand how we feel as people. We need to protect the environment, we got to protect other human beings. We live in a world where they'll throw a bomb and kill a whole country of people or a whole community of people.
It really
You
happened in
know,
Gaza.
yeah,
Sudan, there's a
so
lot of places that we're completely ignoring. We're focusing on the Palestinians, but you have Sudan, you have places in Africa where people are starving. The world doesn't care. The world has not
and,
said
and
anything. So the
yeah,
question is,
And this greed for land, this greed for land, like we are gonna get rid of you and commit genocide against you because we want your land.
but somebody would
And
say
then
that
we want
somebody,
expansionist ideas to
but
push
that has
your,
always
like you
been
said, the
humankind.
greed to build empire and
But that has been the rise and fall of every
yes, and it
major
continues.
society in the world. They get together, they organize, they raise to the level. Even the Mayas,
Yeah,
every,
well, Elon
every
Musk just launched a
civilization
rocket now, along with the
has
other guy
gone
from
through
Amazon.
that.
20 launched one rocket today.
But I'm saying
right.
that is the nature. Like the whole idea is that we want to say that we're a higher being than animals. But a lot of time animals only kill what they need. But
Right,
you
right.
might want to argue that humans are a lower being of animals because we are gatherers of things we don't need. And we
Right.
are, I was actually listening to a newscast that said that the average human being is much richer than their predecessors. But if you ask the average human being, they'll tell you that they're worse off. And certain things they'll talk about indoor plumbing, electricity. But they said back in the 60s and 70s, the average size house was 1,000 square feet or less. Now everybody wants a 2,500, 3,000 square foot house. And now that becomes the measure of whether or not I'm doing well or not in life when most people don't even use half the rooms. Like you live in a 10-bedroom house. Some people never see those rooms, and
Right.
so we become gatherers, and Joseph probably like, hey, I'm a capitalist, I don't want to hear this. But I'm just saying that in a lot of cases, we as human beings are never satisfied. It doesn't matter what you do with it. We're competitive people. We come into this world competing. You're competing to even be born.
Yeah.
You're competing to become alive. And that's the structure of humanity to compete. And that's the structure of nature. If you're in the jungle, the lion, the biggest, most powerful lion, kills the weaker ones. And then when the lion gets weak, he gets killed also. And so all I'm asking is this climate change or is this just who we are as people? You know?
Yeah. Okay. I want to also
I think
ask,
it's going to be.
Joseph,
Go
chime
ahead.
in.
I just listen to one this, eh? I soak it in, I take it in.
No, I just want to say there's nothing wrong with being a capitalist.
Right,
It's nothing wrong with making money because money, you and I know money is power.
right.
But you can use the money to improve human lives. There's nothing wrong with that. But there are those other people who are making money and not putting it back in the community that then I have a problem. But there's no problem making money. There's nothing wrong with that.
no, not at all. Not at all. It's how we use your wealth. I think in terms
Yeah.
of most of these billionaires on the earth, I mean, there are lots of them that give their money towards charity and charitable causes. I think, like now in a crisis like this, I ask the question, okay, they're all depending on government now to chip in. But what about all these billionaires and so on? In the case of the Palisades and Altadena and Malibu, and would they, Dr. Goff and Joseph, would most of their wealth go to enhance the wealthy people who have been displaced and been devastated by this firestorm and this crisis, and those black middle class in Altadena, would they be left out? The whole politics of inclusion, who gets and who does not get. How do we think that this thing will play out in terms of this crisis?
Well, I don't think there are going to be any winners because when you have a fire with that kind of destruction, we all lose, right? Because you're never going to get back those photographs with your family. Those things are very valuable to you as a person. So you'll never get those back. And again, they're not going to get enough money to build those properties back again. So we all lose,
And their
again,
generation, they can't pass it on to their generations that
yeah, you
come
lose.
after them. One of the things, and it's just thoughtful because you said billionaires, but America has a policy of breaking up monopolies, right? If a company becomes a monopoly, it breaks it up because they want competition. But my question is how you could have one man worth 400, 500 billion dollars and there's no policy as to giving one person control over so much. And I'm talking about Mark Zuckerberg, who is controlling one very powerful media source, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. He owns it all. So he has a very powerful, and that's one man. Then you have um, Elon Musk, they're allowing to build all these spaceships control robots. He's talking about building an army of robots. I mean, you're talking about one man. When you are willing to control corporations for not doing the exact same thing that we are allowing individuals to do. And America, to me, has to come to terms of whether or not there is obscene wealth. Because obscene wealth leads to these types of behaviors. This striving for obscene wealth. And I say nothing wrong with money. I say nothing, but I have a problem with one man having so much control over something that impacts billions of people. And we're talking about Mark Zuckerberg. Then
Well,
then
it's a
the
trickle-down
Alpha.
system, Aria, and correct me if you may, everybody, but the system that United States uses is probably mostly used by Republicans, is that the trickle-down system of those richest at the top create the jobs and stuff like that. I would ask my classroom young people, they're young, they're eighth graders, like, who is that? Name me two of the, and these kids are fascinated by these people.
Right.
Elon Musk,
Which their level is,
they are heading in that direction,
but to
and
reach
they will
that
be the new
level,
innovators. Is anything wrong with that?
but there's nothing
I
wrong with
ask. And the
innovation.
distribution and the trickle down of the wealth goes to create the jobs and stuff. That's how America works.
But America also
You
breaks
know.
up monopolies for that same reason, because what happens is when one company becomes dominant, there's no more competition. If you have one company just controlling one thing, you don't open, and that's why Google recently, I don't know if everybody noticed it, but once upon a time when you do a Google search, Google used to automatically pop up, and they were sued because they were saying that they locked out all the other companies from getting access to the search. So now, if you go on Google and just automatically search, Google doesn't automatically pop up anymore because they were taken down because they were a monopoly. And the reason why you don't want anybody to dominate any specific field and lock people out is simply because you want innovation. You want
That's
other
true.
ideas to trickle in and you want innovation. And
Yeah.
I'm saying that this pursuit for this obscene, it's nothing wrong with being rich, but $400 billion, just to put it in perspective, Elon Musk is richer than most countries in the world. And they're giving him the ability to go fly rockets. He is giving politicians $250 million in election funds. All this, and I'm saying this as a thing because the Supreme Court, once they allowed corporations to start donating to politicians, now you have these super funds, and now we're not dealing with regulations anymore. We're not dealing with laws that protect people anymore. We're dealing with politicians who are working for people so that they can pursue obscene wealth. That's all I'm saying. That's all.
But I want to bring it back to the question and throw it at Dr. Goff and Joseph in terms. I've heard that insurance companies, the funding, the insurance that they provide for building back homeowners in this whole firestorm crisis in California, here in Los Angeles County, is actually the taxpayers that will fit that bill. How true is that? I mean, Dr. Goff, we pay for that. We will end up paying for that.
We will pay
I'm
for
not
it.
sure. I think when you pay your insurance premium and lots of people buy insurance, that should cover you when you have an emergency. I'm not sure if the taxpayer pays the insurance company, but the taxpayers pay a representative to monitor the insurance company,
But in
so that if the
FEMA is tax funded, and FEMA has to step in because it's a major disaster. And so the insurance get a break because FEMA steps in. But with that being said, guys, we're actually out of time. This was a great conversation because I feel like this is a conversation that we need to do for Belize also when it comes to regulations. Joseph to smile with me because He doesn't agree.
No, I just listen to your opinion,
Right,
I just not necessarily agree, but but I mean, I think that they have to have a certain amount of balance,
right.
I agree in the capitalist system. I think that I believe in the trickle down economics model, like the man at the top. I mean, I don't believe that somebody should be given anything, but if the person work hard and the person could amass enormous amounts of wealth or whatever it is, as long as not it hurts somebody else or whatever it is, I think that that wealth is it has the ability to trickle down and benefit to a lot of other people. And I don't only think that it's the wealth. I also think that the technology that these people are actually developing for the United States. So I think that that's a big part of it, And if they have that ability there, they could it would I think it benefit the United States and it benefit all the US people,
No
and I think
problems.
it benefit everybody over the world,
As long as they're not buying my politicians, I have no problem with it. As long as you're not
Well,
the
well, well,
jumping to
well,
the
there's nothing you
politics.
could do about that part. That's definitely going to be in the equation. That's how
Well,
politics works. And
but that's not because that's how it works. That means that's how it should work, right?
oh, yes, yes, yes.
yeah. So
Dr. Goff and Joseph, thank you so much for coming in. Dr. Goff, your last words, and then Joseph, please, and then we will have Bilal take us out. Not physically,
Well,
but out the show.
yeah, I thought it was really good discussion. We discussed global warming. We talked about economics, and those are all relevant topics, whether you're here or here in the US or in Belize. Um, I think for me, I hope and Belizeans watching that we need to take care of Mother Earth. We need to focus on global warming and we need to take care of each other in our communities. And so that's why I think this discussion was fantastic. And so thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, too.
Joseph?
well, I just wanted to say, obviously, thanks for having me here. The conversation was nice. It was enlightening. I think that from there's a takeaway from all these things, and I think the takeaway is to be prepared. And I think that each individual person, each individual family should have an emergency plan, should be prepared for whatever natural disaster. It could be natural disaster, it could be man-made, it could be whatever it is, But there should be a level of preparedness. And I think for a lot of people, they're not prepared, and so we should, kind of remain vigilant, do a research, kind of understand our surroundings, whatever it is, and, prepare for whatever may come, because I think it could save ourselves, it could save our family, and it could save our property. So I think that is the biggest takeaway, and I would like to share that with people, that, sit down with your family and come up with some sort of a preparedness plan for yourself. It
I
could
like the
save your
five
life.
P's.
Yes, I like the 5 Ps.
Yeah.
Thanks very
Yeah.
much. Well,
Thank
that was greatly appreciated from both of you. We thank both of you for accepting invitation, for coming on the show, Dr. Goff. I mean, I drill you, man. I have you up on XTV News, and you are so kind enough to not to say no. And inviting you to the show today because you're like a witness interviewer. If I'm doing a documentary, me myself being a documentary filmmaker, it happened to you.
Yeah.
This is the best that we can have, and I want to really thank you for coming on, and also again for going on XTV and sharing your experience with this. There are those Belizeans who have been devastated worse than yourself. Again, I have to mention my brother Mark Sampson, whose house was totally burnt down in Altadena.
Oh.
Um, He said, man, give me some time to think about it before I come on a show to really talk about that. It's devastating. And so there's always those who are worse off, right, Dr. Goff, who have gone through worse. But we want to thank you so much for coming on. And Joseph, appreciate you, brother, because you gave us some kind of understanding in terms of what this thing was all about. People just look at certain things and they think it's, oh, this and that, but there are so many factors that plugs into these things. Yeah, so many engineering, infrastructure, so many factors. When we think it's this, it's not really that. It's something else. But for someone like you who is an engineer is on the ground, an architect and all that, who understands this and operates in California, again, we appreciate you to give us some understanding of this. And we want to again thank you, the Belizean audience, those of you in the United States listening, and in the United Kingdom and across the world, as well as our listening and viewership across the world and in Belize on the ground. We want to again say thank you for watching.
I am a true born Belizean.
Tell them that we born it.
Belize my home, my native land.
Tell them that we born it.
I want you people to understand.
Tell them that we born it.
I am proud to be a Belizean.